publishes a hate crimes report that deals with hate crimes from skinheads and from neo-Nazi and other white supremacist groups, which is unfortunately appears to be, I'm not going to pre-guess the investigation, but it looks like what we're looking at here. So, and there's many different communities. These are people that just don't like anybody. It's not a question we could have told them we were Sikhs and it would have been all better. This is another group of hate in our country that we have to inspire out of their state of mind. So, Congressman, please, thank you for coming, and please.
Hello, I'm Congressman Brad Sherman. I represent Sherman Oaks in the West San Fernando Valley. Today, all of America wears a turban because all of America is united in our grief for those who died in Wisconsin and our prayers for those who are in the hospital. We have to bring this country together, knowing that it is a diverse country with people from all over the world. That's what makes us strong, and that is what makes us united. And there will on occasion be those filled with hate who will try to split us apart. And then we have to react in anger and in grief. We have to salute our law enforcement, those brave officers who brought down the assailant. And of course, we need an FBI investigation that is absolutely thorough, that assures us that that there is only one perpetrator, or if there are any accomplices, that those accomplices are hunted down and prosecuted to the full extent of the law. We have to start with our children and teach them, so that it's not just 99% of our children, but 100% of our children know that Americans come in all shapes and sizes, in all colors and hues. And today, filled with grief, filled with solidarity, today all Americans come in a turban.
I'd now like to ask City Controller Wendy Gruhl, who, when she heard about this, was very, very concerned and was very anxious to find out if there's some way she could show her concern and her support of the Sikh community.
Today is a sad day in our country, and yet we're standing here with hope and encouragement, because we're standing here with people here in Los Angeles who say we will not accept this kind of tragedy to get us down. We will not accept this kind of tragedy to say that the people of the United States are standing together here in Los Angeles, here in the San Fernando Valley. Say we're standing with the Sikh community, giving our condolences, and at the same time saying that we will not stand for this kind of behavior, that hatred is not acceptable. It's not acceptable in Wisconsin, it's not acceptable in New York, it's not acceptable in Los Angeles. And you see here today the varying faiths standing up, and it's what makes Los Angeles one of the best cities in the world, because we support one another. And today, although it is a day of tragedy, it is a day that reminds us that we are one Los Angeles, and we are one country. As the Congressman said, we have to start with our children to understand that our diversity, our cultural differences are really not differences. We are all the same. We're all the same people. And so anyone who would challenge in Los Angeles, and anyone who would dare to do anything in Los Angeles, will know that we will all stand together, that we are proud of our diversity. We are proud of the Sikh community here in Los Angeles, and we look forward to standing side by side and supporting you today on a day of tragedy and a day of hope, because we will use this horrible tragedy experience to say, let's build those bonds together even stronger. Let's stand together, our children and adults, to say that this will not happen in Los Angeles, and that we will stand against hatred. Thank you.
Bole Sonehal.
By the way, to the press, that's the way we applaud in the Sikh community. That's how we show our appreciation. I'd now like to briefly ask Rabbi Abraham Cooper to come up and say a few words on behalf of the Simon Wiesenthal Center, as a center who's dealt with hate crimes and bias all the time they've existed. Rabbi?
Thank you. I think that it is appropriate for me to say this evening that I can't speak for the entire Jewish community of Southern California and for the 400,000 members of the Simon Wiesenthal Center. First and foremost, in solidarity with our Sikh brothers and sisters and in our prayers for the recovery of those who were injured, and in our silent remembrance of innocent people who were gunned down for the sin of their religious identification. I wanted to actually just speak for a moment about what I consider to be a misnomer, and that is the term senseless. Of course, for good people, when they hear of such horrible crimes, the first reaction is, what a senseless act. But in fact, it is not a senseless act to the perpetrator. We do have to confront the reality that there are movements, there are people who have embraced evil, and for whom the targeting of religious community, a peaceful one, in Wisconsin is not a senseless act. It is a targeted act against an innocent community. 2 weeks ago, I was on the grounds of a Jewish day school in Toulouse, France, where a terrorist had grabbed an 8-year-old girl by her hair and executed her in front of her father's eyes before murdering him. We hear of the burning down of mosques. We are now dealing with a deep tragedy in this community. I think it's very important that we, and if you will, those of us in the civilian domain, and here in LA we get it. You see the wall-to-wall diversity. We get that we have to stand together when one house of worship is targeted. We are all targeted. We get it. We're very grateful that we have a law enforcement here in Southern California that knows how to deploy and knows how to protect. At the end of the day, we also have to have our eyes open that unfortunately the forces of evil and terrorism, including domestic terrorists, is part of the reality that we are going to have to confront. We have to do so even as we bow our heads in silent prayer with our eyes closed for the victims. We better have our eyes open to deal with the forces of evil. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Rabbi. I'd like to quickly ask Reverend Dr. Gwen Gibord from the Gibord Center, which is an organization which encompasses and pulls together all religions. She calls her center the Center of Religion Inside Out, so that we get to the core of things. We find the humanity within all of us, and we find ways to work together to elevate the community. Gwen?
Thank you, Narenyan. It is an honor to be here to stand with and on behalf and for the Sikh community. We come together tonight in grief, and it is my prayer that we will leave in hope. Look at this wonderful group of people here tonight. We represent many different faith traditions in the greater Los Angeles area. We are people of prayer. We are people of hope. We look to the future to continue to be in dialogue with all different faith communities. As people of faith, people of prayer, people of hope, if we have any integrity at all, we will also pray for those whose hearts are so filled with hatred that something in them that is hardened, something in them that has taken them down an evil path, that through our prayers, through our compassion, they too will become people of love. That is my deepest prayer as we're all with all of you tonight. Again, it is my profound honor to be here to stand with you and for you of the Sikh community.
Since the terrible events of 9/11, the Sikh community and the Muslim community have had to stand side by side fighting ignorance and hatred and fear and anger that existed after America was attacked. Right away, because right away, as soon as people were being attacked, the first person murdered in a hate crime after 9/11 was Balbir Singh Sodhi, a Sikh in Mesa, Arizona. Many too many individuals followed in attacks, murders, harassment, discrimination since then. I have the honor and pleasure of introducing now a very good friend of mine, Dr. Meher Atud, who has stood with the Sikh community since 9/11, and we've worked together hand in hand to try and educate Americans and try and bring resolution to this blind hatred. Dr. Atud.
Thank you very much. As a matter of fact, it's not that I stood with the Sikh community. The Sikh community stood by me for so many occasions, and it is part of me being here is a sense of gratitude and a sense of sharing that those who are subject to hate, they know its bitter taste, and they wish it will never happen to anybody, regardless to the body he or she might be. When horrific things like that happen, it should take us beyond the grief to really try to ponder and try to find reasons why people in our society, some of them, get that sick without seeking medical advice, medical, psychological, spiritual, intellectual, whatever, until they reach that point. And I'm very disturbed that in our society, the rhetoric of hate is not met with due outrage. And rhetoric becomes actions. And actions end up in something so horrific like what we have seen. I am calling on all people of faith, even people who have just faith in humanity, in human beings, to be very determined and rally together so that we adopt the slogan, never again. It should be really a never again expression of violence and hate against anyone by anyone, and we should be solidly behind that. I offer the deep condolences of the Islamic Shura Council of Southern California, of the Islamic Center of Southern California, and the Muslim Public Affairs Council of Southern California. And I really, our hearts are bleeding with you.
We only have a few more speakers. I realize it's getting pretty warm in here with all the people stuff in this room, so if you'll bear with us for a couple more minutes. There are many other faith communities represented here. I don't know that all of them will have a chance to speak. I want to recognize John Ishvardas from the Sufi community, who's always been a good friend of ours. Shakil Saeed from the Islamic Shuri's Council, he's the executive director. Salam Moriarty is someone who I've worked with constantly since 9/11, and we trade favors a lot. You know, I get him into training these guys, and he lets me know things are doing. Swami Saradevananda from Vedanta Society from the Hindu community. Bhante Chacho, please step up. The Buddhist community, who are always usually spend most of their time meditating, are very active here in LA, and they are always supporting on these community issues. Bhante Chacho, Ruth Brody Sharon, and Thomas from the Parliament of the World Religions, and Malika, and all of you. I wish there was time for everybody to speak. I think that what we need to do now, what time is it? It's 10 to 8. We're going to adjourn to the worship hall, where our political guests and a couple of our interfaith guests would like to actually address the community itself, the Sikh community who's gathered there now. When we go into the worship hall, it is shoes off and heads covered all the time while you're in there.